A millionaire saw his pregnant ex-wife cleaning tables at his wedding reception. What he did next shocked everyone. The grand ballroom of the Starlight Hotel was glowing with golden chandeliers, the scent of fresh roses filled the air, and laughter echoed off the marble floors. Guests in elegant gowns and tailored suits sipped champagne, congratulating the groom, Nathan Carlyle, a self-made millionaire and one of the most sought-after bachelors in the city. Nathan stood tall in his crisp white tuxedo, his arm wrapped around his stunning bride, Olivia Monroe, the daughter of a prominent senator. The press had covered their relationship like a fairy tale, rich, powerful, and perfect. But in that moment, as Nathan glanced across the room, his smile froze. His heartbeat faltered. There, bent over a table, clearing half-eaten plates and used napkins, was a woman he never thought he'd see again. Sophia. His ex-wife. And she was pregnant. His mind went blank, his chest tightened. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she carried herself, tired, weary, yet trying to stay unnoticed. Her once radiant auburn hair was tied in a loose ponytail, her uniform slightly wrinkled, and her hands he had once held with love, were rough from labor. Nathan's fingers clenched into fists. What was she doing here? Working as a waitress? Then a painful realization hit him. The woman who once shared his dreams, who had stood by him when he had nothing, was now reduced to clearing tables at his wedding reception. A murmur spread through the crowd as more people noticed Nathan's reaction. Olivia tugged at his arm, whispering, "Nathan, what's wrong?" But he didn't answer. His feet moved before his mind could process it. He crossed the room in swift, determined strides. Gasps filled the air as he reached Sophia's side. She flinched when she saw him. Her hands trembled as she clutched a tray, trying to maintain composure. "Nathan." Her voice was barely above a whisper, filled with something between shock and embarrassment. The room fell silent. Everyone was watching. Nathan swallowed hard, his emotions warring inside him. Then, in front of hundreds of guests, in front of his bride, his in-laws, and the entire world, Nathan did something no one expected. A hush fell over the room as Nathan took a step closer to Sophia. His piercing blue eyes locked onto hers, scanning her face for answers. Why she was here, why she was working this job, and most importantly, why she hadn't told him she was pregnant. Sophia took a shaky breath, forcing herself to look away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. She began, moving to step aside, but before she could retreat, Nathan's hand shot out, gently but firmly catching her wrist. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Sophia stiffened. "I'm working, Nathan," she whispered, her eyes darting around at the stunned onlookers. "Let me go." But Nathan wasn't letting go. The whispers in the room grew louder. Olivia's face had turned pale, her delicate fingers gripping her bouquet like a lifeline. "Nathan," Olivia's voice cut through the silence, sharp and demanding. "What are you doing?" For a moment, he didn't respond. His eyes remained on Sophia, searching, questioning. Then, in one swift motion, he did something that made everyone gasp. He took the tray from her hands and set it aside. Then, without hesitation, he reached for the microphone from the wedding band's lead singer. Every eye in the room was glued to him. The guests held their breath. The reporters, sensing a scandal, had their cameras ready. Nathan's voice was steady, but there was a rawness to it that no one had ever heard before. "Many of you don't know this, but before I had wealth, before I had a name, I had her." He turned to Sophia. "She was my wife. She was there when I was nothing, when I could barely afford a cup of coffee, let alone this extravagant wedding." A murmur swept through the room. Olivia's face turned a deeper shade of red. Nathan ignored it. His grip on the microphone tightened. "I don't know why she's here today, working like this," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "But I do know that the woman standing in front of me doesn't deserve this. And if she's carrying my child," he looked at Sophia's pregnant belly, his breath hitching. "Then I've failed her in ways I can't even begin to comprehend." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. "Nathan, please don't." But he wasn't done. To the horror of his bride and the shock of his guests, Nathan turned toward the wedding officiant and uttered the words that would change everything. "This wedding is over." Gasps filled the room. Olivia's bouquet slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The senator, her father, stood up abruptly, his face dark with fury. "Nathan, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Nathan didn't flinch. His entire world had just shifted. "I'm doing what I should have done a long time ago," he said, turning back to Sophia. "I'm making things right." Sophia shook her head, stunned beyond words. "This isn't right, Nathan. You don't have to do this." But Nathan wasn't listening anymore. He reached for her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. His voice softened. "Sophia, tell me the truth. Is it mine?" Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." Nathan exhaled, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. Then, in front of everyone, his ex-wife, his almost bride, his judgmental guests, he did what no one expected. He dropped to his knees before Sophia. "I don't care about this wedding. I don't care about money, status, or what anyone thinks. What I care about is you. And our child." His voice cracked with sincerity. "Please, let me fix this." Sophia covered her mouth, overwhelmed. But before she could respond, Olivia's voice rang through the room, shaking with rage. "You will regret this, Nathan Carlyle." The senator stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "You've humiliated my daughter, embarrassed this family, and ruined the biggest business deal of your life." His voice was dangerously low. "You think you can just walk away?" Nathan rose to his feet, his hand still holding Sophia's. He turned to the man who had once seemed so powerful and said, without hesitation, "Yes." A stunned silence followed. Then, chaos erupted. Reporters swarmed forward, guests gasped and whispered, and Olivia stormed out of the ballroom, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a forgotten dream. But Nathan didn't care. Because for the first time in years, he knew exactly what he wanted. And he wasn't letting go. The ballroom was a whirlwind of chaos, guests murmuring in disbelief, cameras flashing, and Olivia's sobs echoing as she disappeared through the grand exit. But Nathan didn't move. He stood there, gripping Sophia's hand, blocking out everything except the woman he had once loved and the life growing inside her. Sophia was shaking. "Nathan, you don't understand," she whispered. This isn't how it's supposed to happen." "I don't care how it's supposed to happen," he said, his voice steady. "You're carrying my child, Sophia. And I let you go once. I'm not making that mistake again." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "You think it's that simple?" She pulled her hand away, hugging herself. "You're about to marry a senator's daughter. You have wealth, power, everything you ever wanted. You don't get to rescue me just because you feel guilty." Nathan clenched his jaw. "This isn't about guilt." "Then what is it about?" she demanded. "Because I've spent the last 2 years picking up the pieces of my life. I don't need you to come in and... I still love you." The words silenced her. The entire room felt like it held its breath. Sophia's lips parted, but no words came out. Nathan took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You think I just moved on? That I forgot about you? I didn't, Sophia. Not for a second. And now that I know you're carrying my child," his voice wavered, "you can hate me all you want, but I will be in this baby's life." Sophia wiped her tears, her heart warring between pain and longing. Before she could answer, security entered the ballroom. One of the hotel managers rushed up, nervously whispering, "Mr. Carlyle, should we remove her?" Nathan turned to them, his expression turning ice-cold. "Fire anyone who even thinks about laying a hand on her." The manager paled and backed away. Sophia sighed. "Nathan, you can't just... Come with me." He didn't wait for her answer. He gently took her by the hand and led her out of the ballroom, past the shocked guests, past the flashing cameras, past the life he had just walked away from. Olivia's father's voice followed him, laced with venom. "If you leave now, Nathan, you're finished. Every deal, every contract, You'll lose everything. Nathan paused but didn't turn around. Then I guess I'll just have to start over, he said, and walked out the doors. The cold night air hit them as they stepped onto the empty street outside the hotel. The echoes of the wedding chaos were muffled behind them, but Sophia still felt trapped in a storm of emotions. She pulled her hand free and turned to face him. What now, Nathan? You walked away from your wedding. Do you even know what you just did? He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. I just did the only thing that made sense. You're impulsive, she muttered. You always were. He cracked a small, tired smile. And you were always the voice of reason. She shook her head, wrapping her arms around herself. Nathan, I didn't want you to find out like this. His gaze softened. Why didn't you tell me? Her throat tightened. Because we ended badly. Because you moved on. Because I didn't want to be someone you felt obligated to take care of. His heart twisted. He had hurt her more than he realized. I would never walk away from our child, he said firmly. I should have fought harder for us, Sophia. I should have. Stop. She squeezed her eyes shut. You don't get to rewrite the past. Silence stretched between them. Nathan took a deep breath. Then let me write the future. Sophia opened her eyes, searching his face. What does that even mean? It means I'm here, he said, stepping closer. It means I'm not leaving you. It means whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'll prove to you that I choose this. I choose us. Her lip trembled. Nathan. He reached for her hands, his voice dropping to a whisper. Please, just let me be here for you. For the baby. That's all I'm asking. For a long moment, she just looked at him. This man she had loved and lost, now standing before her, offering something she had once dreamed of but convinced herself she could never have again. Finally, she sighed. You're not going to give up, are you? His smile was small but certain. Not a chance. She let out a soft, almost disbelieving laugh, shaking her head. You're insane. His fingers brushed against hers, warmth seeping through. Maybe. But I'm yours. And for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. Months later. The small apartment smelled like freshly brewed coffee and pancakes as morning sunlight streamed through the windows. Sophia sat on the couch, a hand resting on her growing belly, watching Nathan move around her tiny kitchen like he had always belonged there. Since when do you know how to cook? She asked with a smirk. Nathan turned, flipping a pancake onto a plate with exaggerated skill. Since I realized I needed to impress the mother of my child, he said with a grin. How am I doing? Sophia laughed. You're burning them. He glanced at the slightly charred pancake and shrugged. Details. It had been 3 months since the wedding fiasco, 3 months of late-night talks, rebuilding trust, and Nathan proving in every possible way that he was serious about being there for her and their baby. He had walked away from a billion-dollar empire, lost lucrative business deals, and had become the subject of endless media gossip. And yet, he had never once looked back. Instead, he had found an investor to help him start his own company, one where he wouldn't have to answer to corrupt businessmen or power-hungry politicians. And though it was still in its early stages, he was happier than she had ever seen him. More than that, he had been there for her. Doctor's appointments, late-night cravings, morning sickness. Nathan had embraced it all without hesitation. And yet, a small part of Sophia still feared it was too good to be true. Hey! Nathan's voice pulled her from her thoughts. He sat beside her, placing the plate of pancakes on the coffee table. You're overthinking again. She sighed. I don't understand how you walked away from everything, just like that. His expression softened. Sophia, none of it meant anything without you. He reached for her hand, lacing his fingers with hers. I spent years chasing money, status, and power. But the night I saw you at that wedding, working so hard and carrying my child, I realized what a fool I had been. None of it mattered. You mattered. Her throat tightened with emotion. I just don't want you to wake up one day and regret this. Nathan cupped her face gently. The only thing I regret is letting you go in the first place. Tears pricked at her eyes. "I love you, Sophia," he whispered. "Not out of guilt, not out of obligation. Just because. And if you'll have me, I want to be by your side. As your partner, as the father of our child. And maybe one day, as your husband again." Her breath caught. "Nathan. I'm not asking you to say yes today," he said quickly. "I know I have more to prove. But I'm not going anywhere." Sophia looked into his eyes, so full of sincerity, love, and a quiet determination that made her believe in something she had long given up on. A future. A family. With him. She exhaled shakily, then smiled. "Well, in that case, you should probably work on your cooking skills first." Nathan laughed, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "Deal." And as they sat there, wrapped in each other, feeling their baby kick between them, Sophia finally let go of the past. Because she knew, without a doubt, that the best part of their story was just beginning. The end.